All right. Welcome to this fireside chat with Eyitayo Ogunmola. We're going to be talking about building technical skills, opportunities, challenges, and pathways. Hello, everybody. My name is Keturah Ovio. I am the founder and CEO of Dukka. Dukka is building digital bookkeeping and payment solutions for small businesses in Africa. I will call on Eyitayo to introduce himself. Eyitayo, can you tell us a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
Eyitayo is my name. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I lead Utiva. We are a technology platform that helps Africans to learn premium technology skills and also help companies to hire smart talents.
Perfect. So when I hear I want to hear more about what you do at Utiva before we jump into the questions of today. So you've given a nice 1-2 liner about what Utiva does, but break it down to someone who doesn't know what you do and is not in the tech world.
Yeah, I
What
mean,
is Utiva? Explain it to your 6-year-old nephew.
yeah, certainly. So when you think about the continent, this is a continent of almost 800 million young people. The work that we do at Utiva is to help young Africans between the ages of 18 to 40 years to learn advanced technology skills. Skills that top technology companies around the world are really hiring for. So you think of skills like data science, cloud computing, cybersecurity. So we help people learn these advanced technology skills. We also help companies that want to like supercharge and develop their talents, for digital transformation. We help them also do that. And of course, we are providing talent to, folks in the technology ecosystem. So many of our clients are like companies that really want to hire, some of the best minds out there. We connect the talents that we have trained, we connect them to, companies that are looking for them. And that's pretty much, the work that we do here.
Oh, sounds like amazing work you're doing. Well done, Utiva.
Yeah.
Well done, it's Eyitayo. So you talked about I heard you throw about big words, technical skills, technology skills. The word technical and technology skills, it gets thrown about a lot, right? Now, people outside of tech, they don't really understand what this means. For the sake of those listening and for those who don't understand, these big terms that we use that are very common to us and very, it's digestible to us. Can you expatiate on what that means? What does it really mean? Can you break it down into give us examples of what technology skills are?
Yeah. I mean, so when you look at the technology company or you look at the entire technology industry, the skills that we need to power value creation, in the technology industry is what we generally regard, and we call technology skills. And that's not just technical skills, some technical skills and also non-technical skills, because when you look at a skill like product management, right? It's a non-technical skill. It's a managerial leadership skill that is really needed in the technology industry. You cannot build a successful product that scales without product managers engineering and leading that entire value creation process. It's not a technical skill, right? At the technicality of it, but it's a technology skill. Uh, on the other side of it, there are core technology skills that are just 100% technical. So you think of skills like cloud engineering, cybersecurity, blockchain, developers skills. You think of skills like Web3, software engineering. Those kind of skills are like technical skills, but they're also technology skills, right? So the core of the entire conversation is around, hey, what are the technology skills, managerial, leadership, and technical skills that are needed to power value creation for the tech ecosystem? And that's pretty much the way to think about it. I hope that makes sense.
Yes, it does. So just like drilling down into like the specifics. You talked about product management, you talked about software engineering, you talked about cybersecurity, you talked about blockchain development, and even looking into software engineering. There's a lot that goes under that umbrella, right? You have the front end, web, you have mobile, you have back end development. There's all of that. Is quality assurance and all of that. So it seems like it's a myriad of skill sets that can be learned
Yeah.
by anyone who's looking to venture into the technology world. So thank you for that explanation. Now, zooming, would you say that there's a global demand for such technology or technical skills?
Yes, certainly. I mean, if you look at the UK, for instance, right? Um, Based on some of the major global researches, one of them is the technician research for 2021, 2022 research. Really showing that there is a very high demand for some certain technology skills. You think of skills like data science, cybersecurity, cloud. In fact, cloud engineering has increased between 2019 to 2022 by almost 33%, right? And these are premium technology skills. So if you think about it globally, and globally also captures the African markets. Some of the clients that we talk to every day, are looking for talents across the entire value chain of the technology spectrum. And I hope that really captures it. So globally, companies are looking for technology skills, technology talents at a much more advanced level, you know, and also looking for talent at a much more mid level, but across the entire, technology landscape, across the entire technology value creation, skill, you know, programs that we have out there. And that's how to think about, the demand for this technology talent and technology skills that are out there.
Yeah, so it's exciting to hear that there's a global demand, for all these skills. Now let's zoom into Nigeria, right? Which is the case study of why we're all here today. Zooming into Nigeria, can you honestly say that we have enough people who are equipped with such skills that are required for today's workplace?
Um, yeah, interesting. So this is the way I think about it, right? And this is the way I want like many people to think about it. The 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 talent markets, right? It's a demand and supply market, and basic economics, teaches us that when the demand, for some certain commodities, is higher than the supply, the scarcity. And when there's scarcity, there's a price for, the price for that commodity increases. And that's where the way the talent, market is also designed and structured. What we have at the moment is an imbalance, in terms of the supply and the demand side of the curve. So we are churning out talent. There are many boot camps out there that are developing talents. But on the demand side, it looks like the demand is 10 times, 100 times higher than the supply. So we actually on the continent, we have super brilliant, engineers and developers, that are being, churned out from many of the boot camps and many of the platforms that we have out there. But the interesting side, when you think about the supply side, the demand side, is that the companies that are really hiring this talent are hiring them at scale, more than what we actually churning out. So if we want to talk about equilibrium, one of the things I would recommend is how do we, supercharge many of the boot camps, many of the platforms that are really developing talent, so that we can equate, the demand. Because we're not just looking at the demand from Africa as a continent, we're looking at demand across the entire world, entire part of the world, and that's the way I would think about, the talent, market.
Yeah, so you just jumped, I mean, you just, jumped right into my next question, which is a follow-on to this. Now, you talked about us having a lot of boot camps. It seems like there's so much going on in trying to like upskill talent. I mean, look at Nigeria alone. We're a country of over 200 million people. Like we have people, and a lot of them are under 40, right? A huge chunk of that population is under 40. So if we wanted to upskill a lot more people, we could, because the human capital, the human resource is there. But like you said, it seems like we're not doing enough. What, in your opinion, do you think can be done? What else can we do? It seems like the boot camps, like you mentioned, is not enough. So what else do you think can be done?
Yeah, I mean, the interesting piece here, just like you mentioned, the continent is quite very big, and usually I look at the continent, beyond just Nigeria. Nigeria is a market of almost 200 million people. 65% of them are young people, but there's at the much more continental level, right? This is a market of almost 800 million people, right? That need to be prepared for the future of work. Now, if the way to think about this is to say, can we benchmark our realities, right, against some other things that have happened in some other much more bigger economies? So if you look at the US, there are more than 4,000 coding boot camps, in the US. And this is a market of about, 375 million people. In India, for instance, look at China, look at the UK, Australia, much more smaller, market in terms of population. So one thing we need to do if we really want to meet the supply side, want to meet the demand from the supply side, we need to ensure that number one, the current existing, boot camps, virtual learning platforms, companies that are training, we supercharge them. You know, um, and when I talk about supercharging, I mean, making sure that there's access to funding for many of the platforms that are really providing learning. And we also need to think about infrastructure. For instance, there are thousands of young people that are going into the National Youth Service Corps program. It's a 1 year program. We need to build a much more strategic relationship with that program that helps, coding platforms, learning platforms to work collaboratively with the government to churn out, multiple graduates through that program that are learning, software engineering, blockchain technology, and all that. Another way to think about it is we need to go beyond the linear relationship. What we currently have now is a linear relationship between organizations and hiring, companies like recruiters. We need to change that linear approach to a much more triangular approach where we have recruiters, collaborating with hiring companies and also collaborating with, training firms. That kind of relationship helps those that are training to train for those that are hiring. Because we don't want to go back to the situation where we have the traditional universities that are churning out graduates that are not prepared for the job market because there's this disconnection, between what employers are looking for and what the university is, developing. So we need to create a relationship between those that are training and those that are hiring, so that whatever you are training aligns with the demand of the employers. Now, this relationship is very important, and that's one of the things that we have been able to really, do at Utiva. Many of the faculties and the trainers that are developing talent are industry leaders. So they're able to really bring their expertise, from the work that they do to the class. And that's where you can literally guarantee that everyone that is going through a learning program, is going through that program from the perspective of what employers are really asking for. And that's one of the things that I would say we need to reconstruct our learning curriculum and also work with the universities, because 4 years is too long for a young person to waste, and graduate from the university to realize that there is no job for what you have gone to study at the university. So we need to work with the universities to ensure that we can recreate, reinvent, redevelop the curriculum, to speak to the demand, of the job market. And that's the way, I will kind of like think about this at scale, to answer to a market of almost 800 million people, it has to go a little beyond just the boot camps, the platforms that are training. It has to begin to work with the government, work with the universities, and ensure that every side of learning is reconstructed, to deliver value to employers.
So that's a very good insight, right? And I like the fact, I like what you said about, creating a triangular relationship between organizations who need to hire, who outsource to, hiring recruiters to help them source
Mhm.
for talent. And then, these hiring recruiters come to trainers like, Utiva, to basically say, okay, we need to hire these people. Can you recommend some people for us based on those who have gone through your program, and
Mhm.
level of expertise. I like that. I also like the fact that you mentioned, we need to construct the learning curriculums to speak to governments and universities. Now,
Yeah.
it's a much more easier conversation to have with private universities to say, hey, let's help you restructure your learning curriculum than it is, to talk to and get them to change a state owned or a government owned, university. So that feels like a long shot. That is the sustainable approach. That is the ideal case, because there are a lot more people going through um, public university or public,
Mhm.
tertiary institutions than private. But, that's a long shot. So looking at it from a more realistic point of view, right? Let's even considering the private sector, the private universities. Do you think that is enough? What do you think, startups and organizations can also do on their own bits?
Yeah. The startup ecosystem is not built around what is realistic. The startup ecosystem is built around what is impossible, right? Here, we don't build what is realistic. We solve very difficult problems. So I wouldn't go the private university approach
Okay.
because that is the easiest way. I will go the tougher way. The toughest approach is always the most productive in the long term. And we can't solve a problem for 200 million people by really looking for the easiest way, how, so if we really want to solve the talent challenge on the continent, we need to invest massively in reconstructing and disrupting the educational system, right? Because
So,
if we
so
don't do
I hear you. Okay, sorry, go on.
if we don't do that today, we're going to wake up another 5 years and realize that we are still here. So
Yes.
we have two options. The first option is do we want to do that now and spend the next 5 years, you know, really focusing on the tough and the difficult part of the equation, which is the government universities. Because trust me, in 2022, our universities are still on strike, right? In 2022. If we don't solve this, I remember I wrote an article on Vanguard in 2013, when we had the 8 month strike. And I said, if we don't solve that problem, we're going to wake up after another 5 years and the same problem is still going to, persist. And now it's 2022, we are still experiencing that same thing. So it will be interesting to know that there's a new coalition of almost 14 to 15 technology startups like Utiva that are in the learning space that are now building new products for university students, right?
Perfect.
Um, so we need to solve the big problem. I mean, I
We
am
do.
working with some of my other friends that are in that space saying, hey guys, can we launch free learning programs for thousands and thousands of university students? And can we layer these on platforms like MTN so that as a university student, you get free voucher, or free recharge card for learning. And that recharge and that value is not accessible. You can't use it to make calls, you can't use it on Instagram, you can only use it to
You can
learn,
only use these on Utiva.
exactly. You need to solve this problem at
Perfect.
scale. And that's the way I would really think about it. Yeah.
And I love how passionate you are about this, and I love the fact that you're like, what, we're not competitors, guys. We're
Mhm.
we need to complement each other. Let's form a coalition. We're all trying to solve the same problem. Let's solve it together, right? I love that fact. But do you think there's something that startups and corporates can do on their end to push this movement?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean,
What do you think can be done?
I think the startup ecosystem, the tech ecosystem, has woken up to that reality. And I'll give you two different examples. Number one, right now at Utiva, we have more than 400 faculty members, right? 400 trainers. And these are industry leaders. You know, these are people with 7 years upward and experience, doing data science, cloud computing, cybersecurity, delivering training every weekend. You know, one other thing that we now find interesting is that these organizations are incentivizing their senior developers to train. So you think of Microsoft, for example. I mean, it's interesting. I'm putting them out there. Microsoft incentivizes their senior engineers to train and give back, to the university community. We have trainers from VFD, for example. VFD incentivizes their senior product managers. Patricia, another fintech company, incentivizes their senior, product managers, saying, "Hey guys, go train. Go train. We need to develop the ecosystem. Go train." And they actually incentivize them to do that. Now, what I will say is if we have 5,000 startups that are incentivizing, that are motivating, celebrating their engineers, their developers, their product managers, product designers, saying, "Hey guys, we need to supercharge this tech ecosystem. Go out there and train." The value for them is big, because what happens is that they become the first touch, right? They become the first touch in terms of getting to know the best talent out there. I mean, if I train 40 people, I become the first person that gets to see those super smart talents. And that's the value for the startup ecosystem. I mean, in terms of the immediate value for you, if you ask your employees to go train, out there. And that's one of the things that we are saying. People are really volunteering their time saying, "I want to train product management, train product design." And what I find interesting that the companies are actually, incentivizing them to do that.
I love that. I love that clarity that you gave. I also have seen a rise, and it's something that we're also doing here at Dukka, where we've started our own graduate internship programs. I go on LinkedIn. I saw another company, Wella Health. I saw NATO announce it on LinkedIn, saying they've started their own internship program as well. I personally think this is also beyond like pushing their own senior talent to go train junior talents, whether within their companies or out there. I think if every company can start their own graduate internship program, I think that will also be a great talent
Mhm.
supply, because you're
Yeah,
solving your own problem, from the bottom up. So
exactly.
thank you for that insight. Now, let's look at the reality of things that's happening today, right? You've invested in a talent, you've hired them, you've built them up to be strong intermediate to senior talent. Now Canada, UK, Europe, Germany calls and they answer. What happens?
Yeah,
That's the reality of the ecosystem today.
exactly.
What do you think, how do we solve that problem? Because it is a problem, right? You invested to
Mhm.
to attract, acquire, train, and retain the talent, and then these countries call and then they answer. What do you think startups or corporates today in Nigeria can do to mitigate this risk, this human capital risk?
Yeah. I mean, the straight response to this is it's gonna get worse um in the future. And that's the unfortunate reality, because these talents are not necessarily leaving because they are not satisfied at their company. It's a much more national crisis. It goes beyond the tech ecosystem. It has nothing to do with the talent, it has nothing to do with the company. It's just a problem of the country. So people are leaving to Canada, leaving to the US because the country is trying to figure itself, right? And people don't have the patience to want to stay, in that process. So I think it's going to get worse in the future. But as we move on, the easiest way out for corporate organizations and startups is to become more flexible with the approach, right? There's nothing that says that as a talent leaves to Canada, the talent can still continue with you. If you're much more flexible and you imbibe remote very early, that's one of the things that I will say. I mean, I have seen many of the talent that we have hired for companies, leave after 2 years. It has nothing to do with the company. It's just that the talent wants a better life, and companies need to, companies abroad are also investing massively in diversity, globalization of talent, and they're trying to connect with a much more talent ecosystem across the world. Two things I would say. Number one is that be flexible with the way you work with tech talent, so that anywhere they go, they still find the opportunity to work with you. And then you can also hire talent abroad. Africans abroad, you can hire them. Number two is you need to tell a much more bigger story, you know, so that people, regardless of where they are, just want to work with you. So it goes beyond just the business. It's telling the story of the social good, how you're solving real problems, how you're creating business value. And that's one of the things I find interesting, in the tech ecosystem. Senior engineers wouldn't mind working with you from Spain, from Canada, from Australia, if they really connect with the core of the work that you do. And that's one of the things that we need to learn as tech, as the tech ecosystem. You need to, I mean, if you want to attract the best talent, it's not just about buying laptops and thinking that, oh, gym membership. If you give them gym membership, they will still leave. If you give them laptops, they will still leave. It has gone beyond all those incentives. It's now around about what's the core, what problem are you solving, what's the story behind the work that you do, and that's what keeps talents, regardless of where they want to stay with you, they want to do more with you, and that's the way I will respond to this.
Yeah, I'll also throw in there to say, um, baking into your structure or your compensation structure ownership very early on would also help to keep talent on there. I mean, there's a
Absolutely.
reason why, Googlers don't leave for like 10 years until you're like, okay, I've been here for a decade. What am I doing with my life? Right. So I would say, baking in ownership structure,
Yeah.
is also a key way to keep talent or to retain talent in your organization, and a bigger story. I'm all for that. So I'm a newbie. I'm on this. I'm attending this virtual summit, and I've heard all these, big words, thrown around. Now I want to make a switch. I want to switch careers to tech. What
Mhm.
do I need to do? Guide me.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, we need to approach. Let's approach these from a career perspective. I mean, you should not jump into a tech training because it's the thing people are really talking about or because you think it pays well. You are constructing your new career. So you need to think about this from a career perspective. That's one of the things that we talk about a lot. So the first thing I encourage you to do is find a platform that gives you the opportunity to learn first from leaders for free. You know, you want to learn from leaders, from people that have gone through, that are in that career, that have gone through that phase. You want to really immerse yourself into what are you getting into. You know, Attend sessions to learn about UI UX if you're interested in design, because UI UX is actually more than design. So if you think, oh, I'm going to UI UX because it's design, well, it's more than that. There's more to data science than data itself. So you need to have opportunities, you need to get that opportunity to really have conversations, talk to people that have gone through that, right? Then once that is done, and then you think, okay, I kind of like understand what I'm jumping into. The next step is to follow these 4 C's. The class or the content, it's very important, right? Today, people drop off learning tech, and the rate of completion is as low as 18% because people just jump into it without thinking about what's the structure of the class like. The second thing is you need very good coaching program. Coaching helps you to jumpstart, to get your career started well. I have seen many and thousands of our learners, just because of coaching, they're able to navigate the initial barrier. The community of support is very important. Remember, you're learning something new and you might get tired, you might get burnt out. You need a community that supports you, that encourages you, that you guys work together, you think together. And then finally, you need to work on capstone projects. The biggest value that you get out of learning tech is this: the projects you work on. What makes the difference between someone that gets hired and someone that does not get hired is the number of projects you've worked on. You demonstrate that, hey, you are now a data scientist? How do you demonstrate that? Have you worked on 15 different projects? So projects. So remember those 4 C's: the classes or the content, the coaching that you get into, the community of support that rallies around you to help you, continue pushing, and the capstone projects that you work on. If you figure out these 4 things, I mean, I can tell you for free, we have trained over 25,000 people. I can tell you for free that would help you accelerate into getting an opportunity in tech and getting a career, in tech.
Perfect, perfect. I love how you basically just narrowed it down into four C's. I think people can remember it. Again, if you missed it, it's class of content, it's the coaching, it's a community of support. You always
Mhm.
need a support system. You
Yeah.
create your tribe, and then you need to work on capstone project that really pushes you to to explore and to stretch you. So you must learn and you must build yourself on in the language. So thank you
Yeah.
so much, Eyitayo. So I've listened to you, I've been really captivated by what you say. I want to follow you on, I don't know, wherever you want me to follow you on. How can people, how can anyone listening to this now, how can we follow you? How can we keep in touch with you? What's the communication channel that you'd like to throw open
Um,
today?
and I prefer LinkedIn. Unfortunately, I've reached the cap. On LinkedIn, I can't take more than 30,000 connection. But you can follow me on LinkedIn without connecting. That's easy. You can follow me on Instagram, ey.the sage. That's me on Instagram. But I usually prefer LinkedIn, but that's where my content is actually based. But I'll be happy to connect with anyone that wants to connect with me. It's always a pleasure to build new friendship and new relationship.
Perfect, perfect. And anyone can sign up to Utiva, right?
Absolutely, anyone can.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ada. It has been an interesting conversation with you today. We've learned so much. You've helped us to, demystify this, technology, technical, digital skills, all these, big and biggest words flying around. I'm sure the audience are really grateful for the insight that you've provided. Thank you once again.
Thank you for having me.